right, welcome back to another episode of Living Vividly. I'm Jackie Hedich, your health coach.
I'm Daphne Olivier, the unconventional dietitian.
Today we're joined by Greg Grogan and Robyn Sonnier. They're with the Overwatch Collective. It's a nonprofit and a podcast with the mission of connecting mental health professionals and veterans, family of active and veterans, active military, and first responders. So we're going to get into all that. And thank you guys for coming today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us for a second time.
We had a little bit of a technical issue with the audio for the last one, but it actually worked out because now we have Robyn with us today.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
So you are a podcast host. If I remember correctly, it started as a podcast and then turned into a nonprofit. Can you kind of tell us about that?
Yes, you do remember correctly. Very good. Yeah, so it started as a podcast in 2021. My buddy Justin and I just started talking about mental health, lack of resources in the first responder and military
So the purpose
community.
of the podcast was just to shine a light on mental health for veterans and first responders.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. It was kind of like seeing where the gaps were within that community and getting our people connected to mental health therapists that were culturally competent, well-trained, and just overall reducing the stigma of mental health. And then we had guests from the entire first responder community. We had dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, spouses of first responders, service members on, therapists, everything. And then gained a lot of traction, received a good amount of donations. And then we were like, hey, let's turn it into a nonprofit to help fund therapy for our community.
And now y'all are kicking ass. I think it was over $300,000 so far that you have basically gifted in therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this last Sunday, we just hit $332,000 spent on therapy.
Wow.
And then 298 people have gone through us to get connected to our therapists and or connected them to like 5-day retreats. They have like these inpatient retreats that we fund 50% of the cost for. So we've connected like 10 people to those and then either fully covered or financially assisted 3,136 therapy sessions.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. And it's a much needed service in this population of people. You know, it's very traumatic to experience war, and I guess if you're a first responder, it's not technically war, but all the things that come with being a firefighter, I'm sure that's hard on you mentally. And the families, do the families also get services?
Yeah, so we recently had to change the criteria a little bit. So it used to be more open for family members, just, kind of if they were experiencing like some secondary trauma or some stress or things like that. But obviously, financial stuff, fundraising can be a challenge. So right now the criteria is family members for someone who has died in the line of duty or died by suicide. TALK will pay for the therapy sessions for that, which is still really, really huge because I feel like the survivors of suicide often get, kind of forgotten and overlooked. So I think it's really good that, and hopefully in the future, if we can get a ton of money for TALK, right, we can revisit that. Yeah.
And so y'all are kind of a dynamic duo because you are a veteran and first responder, currently a first responder, and you are a therapist. So dynamic duo to be able to see it from both sides, to be able to make those connections for people. So that's really incredible.
Yeah, I want to clarify my role with TALK is very passive. It's more so as Greg's wife and supporter. So I say passive. I like to be in the background a little bit more for that. So I definitely do what I can to help. And I think, me kind of coming in has really shifted the way that you guys look at cultural competency, I think, for therapists and just kind of different things that therapists working with this population need and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's just a testament to our community kind of having a lack of awareness in like what cultural competency even means for therapists, because it's not like the fun, sexy stuff, right? There's no like police officer or firefighter that's out there and is like, ooh, yeah, like I'm going to proactively look for a therapist and make sure he or she is trained in EMDR, IFS, all these type of things, right? Like nobody thinks about that until it's like too late. So when we first started, we had no idea what we were really doing with cultural competency or mental health therapists.
So explain what that means, cultural competence.
I'll let the therapist do that
part. Okay. So, with the military and first responder population, it's a very unique population. It's very different than your average civilian citizen population, right? Veterans, there's so much more than just combat that can be really distressing or cause a lot of issues. I mean, just the nature of military culture is not really set up for family life. It's just really not. And there's a lot of challenges that come with that, even if the individual never sees combat, right? Even if they don't ever really get deployed, there's still a lot of challenges in that sense. And then, first responders are significantly higher rates of trauma because you can have multiple traumatic exposures on one shift, right? And so there's just a lot that goes into that. And then also, again, similar challenges with family members, children, things of that nature, like, Greg works night shift. And he's got drill once a month. So we're lucky to have 1 weekend a month together. I spend most nights going to sleep alone versus going to sleep with my husband. We don't have kids yet, but, obviously when kids are thrown in the mix, that adds another challenge. So it's just, there's a lot of things that therapists working with those populations really need to know and understand. And of course, the trauma piece, really being able to really treat trauma in an appropriate way, not just kind of have a general idea of what it looks like to treat trauma, but truly know what trauma looks like, especially what it looks like in these populations, because it looks a little different there than maybe a civilian population, and having the right training to really do that. So it's not just understanding trauma, but it's also understanding the culture and the unique aspects of military and first responder life as well.
I know I'm a daughter of a veteran, and this population doesn't really feel like they need therapy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're tough, they're taught to fight. And whenever they're in an acute situation and they're having an issue that they need help with, the wrong therapist can really change the trajectory. So if you go to someone who doesn't quite understand it, they might not ever seek help again.
Yeah. And I always say, I think we have one shot at getting a first responder or service member connected to a therapist. And if you allow one hiccup or one chance for them to be like, oh, no, like this isn't meant for me, then they're going to turn around and then we just lost that person to therapy potentially.
Well, and not to take away from the veteran population or the first responders, but I'd say that's kind of across the board because I work with people, that lots of times therapy could really support somebody. And when you're going in there, it takes a lot of courage for someone to say, okay, yes, I need help, and to actually seek out help. And if you get connected to someone that's not really, you're pouring your life out into them, and it's not really a good match, then it doesn't. I would say that from personal experience. I've been to a therapist once, and I walked away and I was like, nope, not doing that again. It wasn't a good match. I didn't get really anything out of it. And so if you have, I don't have what I would consider big T trauma. I have, just I'm an adult kind of thing. But if you have some big T trauma that you're about to drop on somebody, if they can't handle it, then chances are they will not go back.
That's actually super common too, more so in the first responder population than veteran population, where we've both heard really, some horror stories about first responders who have gone to a therapist who may have said, yeah, I work with first responders, or yeah, I work with trauma or whatever. And then next thing you know, they're having to consult the therapist is crying and had no idea the types of things that, one, they were going to be, talking about, or two, that was even kind of some of the stuff that they are exposed to, on a regular basis. So yeah, definitely important in that sense. And with that, it also takes a certain type of person to be able to hold space for that kind of stuff. Like it's heavy stuff, as a therapist that works with not just, military and first responders. I also see civilian clients, working through trauma. And I've heard, I think, some of the most horrific things, in my career, stuff that, I didn't even know, right, could kind of be a thing to even consider. But it takes a certain space to be able to hold on to that and to be able to be supportive to someone else in that. And that's not for everyone. And that's totally fine because we need those therapists and other avenues, right? But I think it's something that I'm sure, it happens with every profession, but it becomes like gimmicky to see populations, right? And I feel like recently that's kind of been like a gimmick thing is, trauma. It started with trauma. Everyone wanted to start being a trauma therapist. And now I do see it shifting a lot to like veterans and first responders, where like everyone wants to see veterans and first responders. And we need people. But we also need people who are culturally competent. Yeah.
And are doing it for the right reason. I feel like it's always good to say like you work with first responders and service members. And then and this is where Robyn's really been great with helping out talk is like helping us vet these therapists to ensure that they're legit before we contract with them and then put them on our website. So our mission is to have 3 to 5 therapists in every single state and to have a podcast with every single one of them. So no matter what state the first responder or service member is in, he or she can take a few days and be like, okay, here's 4 therapists. Let me look at their social media, their website. And then if you're stuck between Robyn and Greg, you'd be like, all right, let me listen to a podcast with them to learn a little bit more. And you'd be like, oh, I don't like Greg at all, blah, 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 whatever. Boom. Now I want to work with Robyn, which is perfect because if you go through the employment assistance program or through the VA in our community, you just get connected to a therapist and you don't know really much about them. So then you go into a therapy session blind and you do your consultation session or a 15-minute phone call, whatever. And it's like, okay, tell me about yourself, therapist. Okay, tell me about you. And then boom, do you want to work together? Where it's, if you take a few days, you listen to a podcast episode, you hear some of their jokes, you get kind of their vibe and their trainings and modalities that they use, you already have like a step in the right door and you could see if that's right for you or not.
It's almost like online dating for therapists. And trying to find the right match. Yeah. So you don't want to go through the whole spiel multiple times, especially whenever it's trauma.
Mm-hmm. I've been told to find a therapist. And again, this is outside of the specific population that you're working with, but just for a person to find a therapist, you should interview 5, like 15-minute interview for 5 of them, visit 3 of them, and of those 3, you can pick the one that you jive with the best. That takes a lot of work.
It does.
And commitment. I mean, I think that's one of the types of things that feels like in theory, that's great. In reality, I don't think many people are doing that.
No. And I mean, it's so vulnerable. I'm a therapist who has my own therapist, and I hated setting up my own therapy appointment. Like we try to make it as easy as possible. Like I also try to make it as easy as possible where you can just go on my website and not even talk to me initially, because it takes so much courage to set that up. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. But the reason being, for that recommendation is I can be a really good therapist for certain people and be a really crap therapist for other people, right? And that's the same for every single therapist out there. Not every therapist is a good fit for every person. And so it does take a little bit to find the right one. And that can be really hard.
Well, it sounds like you guys are doing those first couple steps.
We try.
Trying to. That's the whole goal because, and like what I said earlier, where I don't feel like any first responder or service member, and if there's a few of you out there listening to this, I stand corrected, but I don't really see many in our people in our community looking for 5 therapists, visiting 3 and doing it the right way, where it's usually what...
I don't see anyone doing that, honestly.
Yeah, and usually what we see is like, it's such a reactionary thing to finally reach out to a therapist for this community, and it's usually when stuff's going bad, right? It's not like 2-3 years on the job and you're having fun chasing people, going to all these cool calls and everything. It's like, okay, I got into a drunk driving crash. Now I'm on administrative leave, or something is going wrong. And now it's like, okay, now I need to go to a therapist. And then it's like therapist near me, or do I go through my insurance? And then it's like kind of last resort where that's the goal with us, is to kind of get all of that out of the way and be like, hey, you come here, these therapists are already vetted. Now you just need to go take a day or two, pick which one you want, and then apply for financial assistance.
So I have this thought, and it might not be accurate, but whenever you are going through like mental health issues and you're in the military or a police officer, if you go through your employer to get therapy, does that somehow negatively affect your job? Like, does it, not showing weakness necessarily, but could you be found unfit to do your job if you seek therapy through the VA or through the police office?
It's not supposed to, but it can.
Does this kind of help prevent that going from an outside or to an outside? organization.
Yeah. And even if it doesn't, the risk of it happening is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge, right? Where it's of reaching out for therapy or reaching out for help or raising your hand as a police officer or firefighter and say, hey, I need help. This is what I'm going through. I'm having suicidal ideations and
then it negatively
affects. And then it's like, wow, okay, like we entrust you to carry a firearm every single day and go essentially take people's liberty away from them and put them in jail, right? Or you could go have to respond to an active shooter or another call. And if you're not fit, then they could be like, hey, we need to put you at the front of the station taking walk-in reports.
And that
for a
will
while.
only further mental health problems, I'm sure, feeling of demotion.
Yeah. And for military stuff, it can impact like your opportunities for trainings, promotions, certain specialty schools, things like that, right? I've worked with clients who, veteran clients who they take these, questionnaires, whatever. And I had one client who answered, honestly, and his MOS, so his job in the military, he could no longer have. So they pulled him aside and they said, because of how you answered on this, like we can't let you continue to have this, role in the military. And so your options are to change roles, which obviously felt like a hit, right? Because then everyone's then going to know that you're not, doing this role anymore, et cetera, or you can get out. Right. And so I have a client who, it's happened for a few clients, but yeah, so it's not supposed to, right?
Of course.
But yeah, it definitely can.
But then at the end of the day, like it's kind of a fine line, right? Because like when I hear Robyn saying that and like when I think about that, it's like, it's for a reason as well, but it sucks to have people be completely honest and be like, this is really what I'm going through. And then for whether it's the military or something, like I was an infantry rifleman in the United States Marine Corps, right? Like if you are completely honest as a rifleman and you say, yeah, I'm actually going through all this stuff, like, and they say, hey, like we can't entrust you with a firearm right now. Let's move you to another military occupational specialty, get the help that you need, and you could still serve, but you just can't do it in this capacity, or you can get out. And then like in a sense, like, yeah, it sucks that being open and honest is kind of taking you away from your job and your passion. But then like the other side of it, like I see it, right? Like maybe we don't want that service member in that position.
Oh, and that does happen a lot too, where people just hold it in, right? Greg calls it like putting, what do you call it? Something in the backpack.
You're putting rocks in a backpack and you can only do it for so long, right? So whether you do 20 years in the military or 25, 30 years as a first responder, and almost every single call you see stuff that kind of affects you. But also between the ages of 0 to 18 or 0 to 21, we don't know what each other have gone through. So you don't know what childhood trauma you bring into the profession that you probably haven't worked on.
They are starting to try to basically do, like in departments, they're doing what are called like annual wellness checks, right? So it's not therapy, but it's a meeting with a therapist where they kind of do like a little general screening assessment. And then based on those results, kind of say like, hey, like these are some things for you to consider, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not therapy. It's just kind of starting to open the door to them getting comfortable with therapy. And what's really cool about wellness checks, at least like in departments, I see fire doing it more than law enforcement, EMS, dispatch. Fire is really good about doing it. But what's really good about that is they also don't report the results back to the department. So the only thing that gets reported back is if they went or not. Right? So it's like, yeah, Greg Grogan went for his wellness check appointment. You don't get to know anything else about it, right? But it starts to bridge that gap of, Greg starting to talk to a therapist and seeing like, oh, maybe this isn't so bad. And then it kind of starts to break the mold for that. I know that they're trying to do a lot of shifting some things around in the military as well. They're trying to make it a little bit different, but I mean, yeah, it's kind of the same. They definitely aren't doing wellness checks in the military, but they do try to make it a little bit more accessible for people to go to therapy. But that also depends on who your command is.
And so that's what I was going to ask. Like, if we're talking about a local, our local government, the police officers, the firefighters, the EMTs, that sort of thing. Who makes that decision? Is that like a city decision? The department makes that decision.
Yeah, the department would be the ones. I mean, and of course they have to get city approval, right? If there's going to be a financial component to it, right?
That was my next question: is how is that funded?
Yeah, so typically the chief or whoever will say, okay, this is what we want to do, and they may already have like allotted funds that they can use at their discretion, or they may have to get city approval. Where obviously like military is very different, right? And again, like they have therapists embedded at all bases and things of that nature. However, it really does depend on the command's attitude about it. Some command, like you can talk about this between talking about the Overwatch Collective at your last unit compared to now, and the difference in kind of command there.
Yeah. So quick example. So I was at a Coast Guard port security unit in San Francisco, and this is kind of new, like when the Overwatch Collective was new, but Jesse and I were there and we were like, hey, can we do some like awareness on mental health and kind of talk about our podcast and nonprofit? And then we brought in one of the ladies that we had on the podcast that worked at the VA, and like one of the stigmas about the VA is like they don't care about you or they're terrible, whatever. They do. They're just so understaffed and they have so many people to take care of. So she did some great research for us, brought in a stack of papers. So we talked, she talked, handed out papers to everybody, and then we kind of got brought into a room and they're like, hey, you can't like advertise and promote a nonprofit organization in uniform and use the Coast Guard to bring in funds and do all this stuff for a nonprofit. I'm like, whoa, hold on a second here. Like, you asked us to talk about mental health, to try to give some resource and everything, and now I'm almost getting in trouble. So then from there on, it was like, hey, you can't hand out business cards when we're on base doing training because it's associated to the nonprofit. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. Didn't talk about it all, didn't do any more. And then when I come out here, now I'm at Port Security Unit 308 in Mississippi. Everybody finds out about the Overwatch Collective, and then some of the people are like, hey, like, can you please talk about it? Every like quarter, we want you to get up in front of the unit and talk about mental health, the resources, give us an update on your therapy statistics. And then my division chief put me up for like a voluntary service award. Like, so I got recognized for it and all this cool stuff. So it's just crazy, like the difference in command.
And that's also why like every military, base, every military branch, every, unit, everything has its own culture as well. So that's something also that it's important for therapists to know too, is not all military looks the same, right? So
yeah, it's very tricky, and the branches are all different mindset, different trainings, different military occupational specialties, different things that come along with it, and then same thing for the first responder community. So
there are some military members that do go back to school or they are in those roles in the military. So you can be. So the way it is right now is only social workers, which I'm an LPC, so I'm a licensed professional counselor, but social workers can have that military occupational specialty in some branches of the United States military. So you can be that in the military. But we do find more common veterans and first responders will have a second career where they go through and they see the need for it. And that's really great, right? Because then there's already like this connection, right? That, okay, you were in the Marine Corps, I was in the Marine Corps, so you kind of have an understanding. And Marines are a very different breed. I joke about this all the time. Every time I meet a Marine, I ask them where their tattoo is, and they always laugh because 99% of them have a tattoo.
My brother-in-law retired Marine.
Yeah, does he have a tattoo?
I'm sure. I haven't asked the question, but I'm sure he does.
It's almost like when you sign the papers to join the Marine Corps, it's like also saying, yes, I'll get an Eagle Globe and Anchor on my
So I have my brother-in-law that retired Marines, and I have one of my very best friends. Her son just joined the Marines.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He hasn't even made his 1 year yet.
He'll have to watch this episode.
Yeah.
It's actually scary because I'm not trying to freak people out, but it is scary because, and this is another thing that therapists need to know about, right? You need to have some cultural competence about. There are programs that the military has access to that can pull all of your medical records, all of your medical records. So if you went to an inpatient hospital before because you had suicidal ideation when you were 13 years old, whether you disclose that or not, the military has access to be able to pull that information and see that. Right. So yeah, double-edged sword for sure. I think right now a pro, I guess you could say, is that recruitment is pretty low. So the things that they might have, said no to before, they're like, fuck it, we'll figure it out. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll fudge some stuff. You'll be fine.
I know. I think I read a statistic. This isn't mental health related, but like, oh God, I don't remember the number, but it was an astronomical number of the current population is ineligible to join the military because of like obesity or just metabolic health problems. So I'm sure it's like whoever, yes, will take you and your family trauma.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more specifically about what types. Let's maybe start with first responders. What is specific in those populations? And if you wanted to break it up into police officers and firefighters, but what's specific in those populations that we wouldn't see in other populations, and why they like what are they seeing? What is the ripple effect into the family? I have a friend right now whose husband is retired police officer. He was a sheriff, and they're getting divorced because he didn't deal with any of his stuff. And he I don't know if I would say he refused. I didn't ask a lot of questions, but all of the things that have come along with the 25, I think, years that he was in the sheriff's office, he hasn't really dealt with all of that. So kind of give us an idea of what that looks like from the person's perspective and things that they may be dealing with that the general population doesn't even think about.
I think you can talk about it as like the individual, and I can talk about it as the spouse.
That's a fantastic idea, Robyn. So from the actual first responder position it's such a such a stressful job, right? Where you could be hanging out, shooting the shit with your buddies at one point, and then you can go to a call for service where some dude slices his arms, slices his legs, and you could potentially have to take his life. And then you go from there to another call where it's this elderly lady who got scammed for $10,000 over the phone, and you have to be put on a different hat and then be like, okay, yes, ma'am, like, I'm so sorry, and then from there you can go to a vehicle collision where you're pulling people out of cars. So it's like, and that's one of the fun parts about being a first responder is you never know what your day is going to look like. I could never sit behind a desk for 8 to 5, log on to the computer and I would lose my absolute mind. And that's like the fun part of it, the adrenaline, but it's also like one of the challenges, right? So, but it pretty much every single day you're seeing stuff that not many other people should see, or you're seeing stuff that would traumatize the hell out of people. Where for us, I mean, we just went on this major vehicle collision, and this dude that got out of the car, ran away. We caught him, and then he had blood all over his face, cuts everywhere. We're like sitting there waiting for the ambulance, and we're like, okay, meshes opens in 15 minutes, and we get off in an hour and 30 minutes. And, it's just like you get so numb to trauma and seeing stuff. So you have that aspect where you're seeing the trauma and you're bonding with your shift mates and everything. And then you have the schedule, which is very difficult, right? Like I work every other weekend graveyard. And then on top of that, we have a lot of first responders that are still in the military like myself. So like what Robyn said earlier, I have drill one weekend a month, where this month I work patrol one weekend, drill the military one weekend, and then I work the next weekend. So I only have one weekend off with her and the dogs in the new house, right? So
I bet you have a lot of boxes still in your new house.
We've done
it's
pretty
actually
good,
not
actually.
too bad.
Okay.
I have OCD, so
I do too.
legit OCD.
Yeah,
so
I do too. So it's just the garage, and I'm trying to put all this stuff up in the attic. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I can go on and on, but it's such like a stressful job. You're seeing so much trauma, and then you're compartmentalizing all these things that you're seeing. And sometimes you want to protect your family and your best friend and your spouse from this, so you're not going to go home and share all this stuff. And then sometimes it's like it's very difficult to come home to your family, and then you're coming down from this adrenaline, or you don't know like what calls for service your husband or wife just ran, and then you're like, okay, hey, we need to do this. It's very difficult.
Do y'all talk about it amongst yourselves? Like talk about the person you just pulled out of a car that may or may not make it? I mean, do y'all talk about the impact that has? Because if it were a bunch of women doing it, we would...
Yeah, we'd be giving each other therapy.
Yeah, I mean, we would talk about it like, oh my gosh, this hits home because it reminds me of whenever, I got into a car accident, or, women would talk about it. Men, do y'all talk? I mean, assuming that the majority of the people that you're working with are men.
Yeah, we make jokes about it. And that's one of the things too, is like, it's like dark humor, right? So like a lot of times you'll be like everybody driving on Ambassador or Johnson, they see a wreck and they have to slow down and almost get into another accident and pull out their phones. And then it could be like a serious collision or something going wrong, and you see cops like laughing or making jokes, whatever. And they're like, oh my God, they shouldn't be laughing, whatever. That's kind of how we deal with stuff. Is like the dark humor.
Yeah, it's a coping mechanism for sure. But as a spouse, I mean, I'm a therapist who works with this population, so I'm just as dark humored as y'all. But if I wasn't, right, it can be very confusing and kind of brash, right? Like to hear sometimes, those things. And then something too, I think is different. So like Greg, he works 12-hour shifts, right? Before you work 10-hour shifts, but now here he works 12-hour shifts. Fire is usually anywhere from 24, 48, sometimes 72, sometimes 96 hours, So if you're a fire spouse,
it's a whole week, basically.
Yeah, I mean, or if they get called out, like Greg's brother is a firefighter, and when they had all those California fires, Jeffrey was deployed for like 2 weeks, I think, fighting fires, and they have a small kid at home. So, that leaves the spouse at home alone handling everything. And then a lot of times we see too for spouses, especially for like fire, EMS is also usually, 24-hour shifts. Dispatch usually is 10 to 12 hours as well. But again, you're having to cover 24 hours of the day, right? So all we have is dogs, right? And I know one time I was like, when you get home, can you just feed the dogs? Like, I feel like I'm feeding the dogs every time. It would really help out if you could just feed the dogs. And he was like, I didn't even think about it. Like, I didn't even realize, right? Where we hear a lot of times too, like, especially for fire, these longer shifts, like the spouse will have their flow, right? At home, like they've figured out their flow. And this happens a lot with military too, right? Where like someone's deployed, the spouse gets their flow, and then the individual comes home and messes it all up, right? And that can cause some friction, or, the spouse will come home, have a really hard shift, whatever. And the person at home is like, thank God you're here, you can help. But the person also just worked a really heavy shift and they're tired and like genuinely drained.
They need to decompress their mind.
Yeah. So a lot of times it can cause like friction. Like these roles, military first responders, really are not designed for family life. It's not. So it takes a lot of intention, a lot of communication, a lot of like partnership, right? I already told Greg his mom's going to have to move in for like at least a month, when I have a baby, because I'm just like, I don't know how, I think about our sister-in-law, Katie, right? I'm like, I don't know how Katie does it. Like, and granted, she has a good, strong support system. And I think that's why, military first responder populations rely on peer support so much, right? Community is so big because you cannot do it alone. You can't. And so that can be one thing. The schedule is challenging, right? Like a lot of times there's stuff that like we're part of Crew Bonaparte, right? And they have this crawfish boil coming up. And of course it's like Greg's drill weekend. If he was here, we would probably go, right? But can't go to that. I had a work event and Greg was working, couldn't come to that, I can't remember. There was something else. It's a lot of like, my spouse can't be there.
It's a sacrifice for both of you.
Yeah. He can't be there. Yeah. And it sucks. I like him. I want to hang out with him.
Yeah, I like you too. And there are some times when it's like when she'll have like a doctor's appointment or some appointment, and I love going to every appointment, and that's just kind of our thing. But like there's some times when it's like 8 or 9 a.m. and I get off at 5 a.m. and just like what she was alluding to, like there are some times when you get home and depending on the shift, right? Because you just don't know what the
you can't
calls
like plan around
exactly,
that kind of thing.
Yeah. there's sometimes you come home and you're just spent. Like the thought of even feeding the dogs it just goes out the window, you know? So, yeah, it's definitely tough. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think because I would see that type of thing I've heard it in people who have spouses who work offshore. Like we get the groove going and everything's good, and then they come home and it's like everything gets ruffled a little bit, and then we get a little bit of a groove going, and then they leave, and so that type of thing where it's just kind of a rotating door. But that's predictable, you know, that type of thing. 7 and 7, 14 and 14. It's a little bit more predictable, whereas these other situations are a little less predictable, and you may or may not be in a place where you have family. So I know military, like they're moving constantly. So you may be in a place for a year, a few months, a couple of years, and then you get picked from there and go somewhere else where you have no real support, and you have to start from scratch developing that. And not everybody does that easily. You know, not everybody can create that social community easy. And the more that you have to do it, I think the harder it becomes.
Yeah. It's exhausting. Yeah. And I think too, when you add unresolved trauma on top of that, right? Like everything that's already a stressor, it's just magnetized, right? And then, you know, spouses feel the impact of the unresolved trauma too. Like it impacts the whole family, right? So that's another thing. Like if trauma is not being talked about, you know, or being worked through, it kind of spills into really everything.
And like these professions, you can also not come home.
Yeah, that is something.
Right?
And
there's another big stressor too that's in the back of the spouse's head that a lot of people don't really think or talk about because it's not like something you want to talk about. But I mean, we see it all over the country. There are firefighters that go on roofs that are on fire and they fall through and they don't come home. Or obviously, like we just seen some of these service members that are overseas right now, they're in a 135 like refueler tanker and they're not coming home.
I will say though, and I've said this before, being a law enforcement spouse is significantly harder than being an active duty military partner because I've done both. And every night when I go to sleep alone, there's a part of me that goes to sleep knowing that I might wake up and you might not be here anymore, you know, and that's a lot too. And as a spouse, it can be very isolating. Like we've talked about that recently. Like I have really good friends and I'm a therapist. So a lot of my friends are therapists and I have really, really good friends. So this isn't a nick to them at all because they do the best they can, but they don't get it. Right? Like they don't get what it feels like to go to sleep alone every night, for one, right? Because most people get to go to sleep with their partner every night. And then two, like keep your phone on just in case somebody has to call you in the middle of the night that there's been an accident, you know, to wake up and not know, right? Like, and there's been situations too where you'll say like you're going on a call, right? So you'll say like, be right back, got to go on a call. And then it'll be like 30 minutes and I haven't heard anything. And that causes obviously like some anxiety. Like, you know, is he okay? Did something happen? You know, like, you know, it can be really scary too. And if you don't have the support system that gets that, oof. I mean, and when I was in an active duty relationship, like, and he was, you know, infantry. I mean, we did deal with deployment, you know, at one point, but it was different because that's the other thing too. And I've talked about this as well. Like, you know, here, thankfully, like your department, y'all usually respond 3 to a call. But if something is really like going down, like you have to just respond, right? And you wait for backup, but like you have to start responding. So you can be in a situation, right, where it's like most of the time for military, like you can kind of trust that there's other people helping to keep your person safe, you know, making decisions, et cetera, right? And outside of deployment, I went to sleep with my partner most nights. I mean, there were certainly like trainings and, you know, TDY and stuff like that. So that's another like key difference where I said, like, I've lived both and I'm like, I love you, babe, but shoot, this is way worse than it was on the other side.
Well, I think that's definitely another big reason why, even if you're not dealing with acute situations, just having mental health therapy and support throughout the whole process is so important to kind of stay sane, not lose your cool, like constantly having that cortisol and just learning to kind of calm down, I guess. Not calm down, but, just talk yourself down a little bit every single night.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I have OCD, so that makes it a million times worse because I have an OCD loop that if I don't write Greg a welcome home note when he goes on a shift that he's going to die. So yeah, I have to write him a note every night.
That's something she's working on in therapy. Yeah. And then like from the first responder side, right, it's tough. And like we all do it, like everybody that's in relationships, like we're continuing to talk to our spouse, but like we could be sitting there like texting back and forth and I'm driving around and somebody could like do something really stupid right in front of me and I go to pull them over and they pull over and I get out of the car and I'm talking to them and writing them a ticket. Well, my phone's in the center console, so then it could be like, uh-oh, why isn't he responding? Why isn't he responding? And then I get back to the car and I'm like, oh no, somebody just cut me off. I wrote him a ticket.
Yeah.
But
for her, it could be like,
that sounds like a nightmare every night.
It could be as simple as like, oh, some older gentleman accidentally cut me off and I wrote him a ticket or gave him a warning or something. But it could also be I pulled somebody over and they came out and shot and killed me because that happens too, So it's like the unknown is so difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do people get involved and support the Overwatch Collective?
Give us your money.
Just kidding.
No.
Hey, that's the life of a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, that's obviously one of the things, and we'll start there with the joke of just give us your money. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're funding therapy for first responders, service members, and families across the United States of America. So
the money that we give you is going towards specific therapy appointments. Okay.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and say 100% of it does go to that because we obviously have operating costs. We have to pay the lovely IRS. We have our website. We have our podcast. So like outside of the operation costs, yes, your money is going towards therapy. And we try to do whatever we can to limit the cost to ensure that a majority of it goes to therapy. So yeah, we have sponsorships. We have, we do a podcast sponsorship. We have one right now. General donations, and then we're about to get our merchandise back up on our website and our inventory. So if you buy a shirt, a sweatshirt, something, we get like $5 or $10 from that. That all goes back to it. And then I'd say if you want to help or get connected, like just the support, like learn about our mission and like the resources that we have. And then I always say this, one of the big things is just talk about it. Like everybody pretty much knows a first responder or service member. So it's like, if you can learn who we are, what we do, and what our mission is, then you have that in the back of your head. So then like the next time you see your first responder at a family function, you'd be like, hey, this really great nonprofit and podcast, the Overwatch, this is what they do, just so you know. Like that's one of the easiest things, I think. And then
download the app.
Yeah, we have an app as well, free to download for Apple and Android users.
What is the app for?
It's just it has our podcasts on there in addition to others that are vetted by us and a good fit for our community. We also have some of the therapists that are on there that you can get connected to. There's a social media aspect, so it's kind of like similar to Instagram where you can go on there and you could post a photo. So some people have posted a photo of like, hey, my son's deploying, this is us, and then people like it and share comments, get feedback. You have an audio room, which is kind of similar to a podcast.
An incognito mode, which I think is the coolest feature.
Yeah, where you can go completely anonymous because confidentiality is huge in our community. So
can they apply for therapy on the app, or is that just the website?
No, you have to go to the website to do that.
Yeah. So the website makes it easy to apply for financial assistance. There's like a little link at the top and you fill out a form, attesting that you meet the criteria, and then you put in your information and then you can get connected there. We also, for any therapists listening, depending on when this gets released, we have a CEU event that's benefiting the Overwatch Collective in May. So me, along with one of the sergeants at Lafayette PD, will be doing a presentation. We have Rixie, who is a therapist out of Baton Rouge. She does a lot with like the COPS program where it's like survivors, and her husband's a state trooper. And then we have Brooke Bartlett coming in. So Dr. Bartlett is very, very highly trained and specialized. So she'll be doing some moral injury presentation. So all of the proceeds for that are going back to the Overwatch Collective. And then we're also currently planning a fundraiser here in October So be on the lookout for that stuff. So even if it's just like attending, one of the events too, the goal is that everything that we do for Talk is putting money back in to be able to continue to provide therapy for people, across the country.
Because one more is one less, right?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That is
one
saying,
more person helped is one less suicide. Is that the...
Yeah, anything. So that the motto comes from season 1, episode 6 of our podcast. We had a Army combat veteran on who actually lost more friends to suicide upon return back stateside than actually overseas, like in combat. So that was very early on when we started the podcast, and he was like, hey, if you guys keep doing this, if you can help one more service member, that's one less funeral, that's one less suicide. And then it's turned into one less divorce, one less person with substance misuse, one less person feeling alone. So at the end of every single podcast I do, which now is like 180 since then, is like, what does one more is one less mean to you? And it's so cool to hear everybody's explanation of it. And like yesterday, I completely caught the gentleman off guard, and he started to break down a little bit and get emotional. And he's like, this is what it means to me. And I was like, oh my God, I got goosebumps. And then we ended on that. So, yeah.
I also want to plug the buddy program that Talk has too, especially like in times of conflict like we have right now. So the buddy program is a list of individuals who aren't therapists, who just want to be, peer support essentially. And they're listed on the website. So from spouses, parents, other service members, veterans, first responder, everything, right? So there's a collection of, y'all probably have like over 30 buddies, right? And so especially like right now, like I think about like, we have people whose, kids are deployed or spouses are deployed, and we don't know what's going on. And we're seeing, service members, are dying, and, all these different things going on, right? And that, again, can be very isolating, right? And military does, I think, a little bit better of a job of like trying to do, groups. They have like family readiness and stuff like that, but it still is very isolating, especially in your own kind of world. Whereas like the buddy program is a good place that these individuals can go, because they can kind of scroll through profiles and see like another maybe parent of a service member who, like I think about your mom, God bless her soul, because her husband was in the military for over 20 years and was a cop for over 40 years. Then she has this one who is a cop for over 11 years. And then her other son is a firefighter. And I'm like, God bless that woman. But like his mom would be someone who she's lived, a lot of life. Her husband was deployed, multiple times. And, so it gives you an option to connect with someone that isn't a therapist who gets it, who's lived it also. And I think that that's something I want to make sure people know about as well.
That sounds very helpful, just to have like a friend to talk to.
Yeah, just someone who gets it.
Well, much like your one more is one less question at the end of all your podcasts, we ask all of our guests one very important question at the end of our podcast is, what does living vividly mean to you? So do you both want to answer?
Yeah. So I did this last time and it completely caught me off guard. So this time I was kind of a little bit more prepared for it. So I think of like being courageous. Like living vividly is being courageous in what you do every day. So it's the courage to take care of each other, to look after each other, but then also like do what needs to be done. Like take care of the task at hand, but also like ensure that you're taking care of yourself.
Cute. Yeah. I think for me, living vividly means like, I mean, right now it's scary times, right? It's just kind of scary, I think, to be a human these days. So I think living vividly for me means like embracing the moments of joy, right? And seeking that out. I know we're really intentional about that. Obviously, you guys have heard a lot about how much, struggle it can be to balance a relationship, but we love like game nights and, just spending time together. And I think like seeking those moments of joy despite the chaos of, current events, whether that's, war, whether that's, balancing a schedule, all these different things. I think it's just like continuing to experience joy.
Thanks for listening to Living Vividly. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. For more resources and details from today's discussion, check out the show notes. Until next time, keep living vividly.